Hi, I'm Suzanne Siracuse. Welcome to season 2 of my podcast, Focused on the Future, Keys to Building a Profitable, Sustainable, and Impactful Business. And I'm excited to be partnering with wealthmanagement.com on this. This series focuses on what firms need to embrace to ensure their growth and success for the future. And you'll hear from industry leaders and advisors on what is working for them. I have a great lineup of guests in store, and today I'm talking with Beth Bosworth. Beth is a wealth advisor with Perigon Wealth, an independent wealth management firm with close to $7 billion in AUM. She also oversees the firm's financial planning operations alongside the planning team. Her passion is to help clients manage the risks associated with accumulating and preserving wealth. I love that. That's a great passion to have. Welcome, Beth. Thanks for being my guest, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Same. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. So I like to start off the podcast with the same question to everyone, which I think I need to turn into like a mini book or a mini podcast or something about how everyone got into this industry. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get into the wealth management industry? You know, more often than not, people get here by accident. So what is your story?
Yeah, I will tell you first off that I appreciate the fact that you've noticed that a lot of people get here by accident. It was very validating to me because I graduated from the University of Georgia, Go Dogs, with my Spanish literature degree and really didn't know what I wanted to do. I happened to move at the same time and had bank accounts at multiple banks. And I noticed how much I enjoyed sitting and interacting with the bankers when we used to have to go into the bank to change your address. So that really was where it started, was looking around, trying to have a really great level of awareness of where I saw people that felt like me, felt passionate about what they did. They seemed happy and excited to help people. And I found that when I went to do those change of addresses. And so I applied to a local bank, and someone there gave me what, for a probably 3-year-old at the time, the opportunity of a lifetime to start working as a banker on Music Row in Nashville. And I immediately knew that advisory role in personal finance was the right fit for me. I mean, again, like I saw myself in these bankers, and then I was in it and I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. It's a very impactful role. But I also was just as aware at how much I still needed to learn. So I really then shifted and started on a path towards CFP, which kind of led me to the independent space. So a lot of really good training. I needed the kind of foundations to actually be able to deliver sound financial advice. So when I went independent, I ended up getting my CFP, worked for a gentleman who had a JD, CPA, CFP, amazing learning environment. And I acquired those foundational skills to give advice, right? And I gained that advisor title for the first time. So a couple of years later, I kind of was thinking, what's kind of the next phase in my career where it's maybe a little bit more focused on a cultural fit that would be right for me. And so I moved to a more new age culture that had a lot more legs in terms of being a long-term fit for me. And that was really the first time I got offered that director of financial planning role. So I had this exciting opportunity to build a book, be an advisor. We were technically business owners too at the firm, so in that 1099 advisor world. But I also, got to really get that experience inside of firm leadership and helping recruit and kind of seeing all the things that go on behind the scenes when you're running a business, right? So you have your advisory business, you're running a business, but running a firm is an entirely separate thing. So this is where my career really took off. And we had a lot of great success recruiting new advisors due to our culture. It was very obviously different. We called ourselves the home for the pissed off broker, and people would cut their ties off when they joined. And it was just a really neat and unique place. That firm ended up being acquired, and for a little group of us, it just wasn't the right fit for us. So we went seeking a new home, and then wound up opening the new Eastern hub for Perigon Wealth. And so, as you said, I continue to serve as head of financial planning there. I have a great client base, all of which came with, it's amazing when you need to go find a new home, and you have to go back to your clients and say, will you continue to be, to be my client? And they say, yes, we'd love to, please let us come. And so, now we're here, been here about 2.5 years, and Paragon's doing such amazing things. And, it's just, again, it's kind of got that cultural feel that I think is the future of wealth management.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What a great story that it was by chance that you were going for an address change and you just liked the people, you identified with the people at the bank. And first of all, I got to ask, so I love that. Are you a country music fan? Was that like also when you thought about, oh, how I could actually work with some of these country music stars? Was that like
I
something
would
that was enticing?
totally. I think that music has great impact on me in general. So I have a pretty wide variety of music that I listen to. I mean, I'll know every song to music that was produced somewhere between 64 and 69. So that kind of Motown world. But so I just have a really huge appreciation for music in general. And it's not necessarily my job to go and wonder if it's great or not great to me. I just appreciate it. And so working in that environment, especially with a lot of the songwriters, and even, you get into the inner workings of the record labels and the business management teams and all of that. It's a lot more robust world than you expect, but it's all driven around artistry. And it was a really incredible experience. And of course, I have a major fondness, even today, watching what some of our clients at the time are doing. It's just incredible to see people really live in their strengths and in their authenticity, and build careers in a really, really tough place. So yeah.
Some of the some even amazingly talented people never get discovered, right? So that must have been so interesting. I shouldn't ask, but I know you can't tell me, but like Taylor Swift, that would be, I know you're probably not supposed to say who your clients are, so I'm not going to ask. I'm just putting it out there. She's from Nashville. So, and the
she
other
was
thing,
quite young at the time, I will tell you that.
okay, so she probably didn't have a bank account at the time.
Just getting started.
And also too, I love that you brought in the fact that you really valued what planning can do, not just investment management, and that CFP piece was critical to, discovering who you are as an advisor. I think the CFP board needs to sponsor this podcast because not purposely, but I think everyone I have on here is a CFP.
I love it. I love it.
So thank you for sharing your story. I always find them so interesting, and I think our listeners do too. So you take, and you can tell even by the answer to your first question, but you seem to take a very personal approach with your clients. In fact, you say you like to live your life alongside your clients, which I think is really beautiful. So can you elaborate on that a bit? And how does this actually help you with planning for them? And then part two, are they usually the same demographic as you? So tell us a little bit about this personal approach with your clients.
Sure, sure. So I would say that I do have a heavy representation of business owners in my client base, partly because of the complexity that really justifies the discipline of financial planning. Sometimes it can be an undertaking to even get clients to go through the comprehensive data gathering. But I find that our business owners, they really can come in and embrace the comprehensive soup to nuts approach. So I have a lot of business owners, but I also have a pretty young book of business. A lot of people that we started working together at the beginning of their savings journey. So throw those, minimums out the door and use your planning expertise to create trajectories. And don't be afraid to walk with people from the very beginning. And what that's happened to do as to provide for me, my family, my career, is that we kind of have built our businesses together and come up together, even though we're doing different things. So, I want to make sure that my clients have enough complexity and to justify that heavy lift that financial planning can be. But for the most part, a lot of them have kids the same age. I was, at dinner with one last night. We brought all of our kids, and that's a beautiful thing. And that's really what I mean by living life alongside people. The other thing I think that people could embrace, it's the right fit for me and my personality to embrace this, is that we learn very personal things about our clients. If we're really digging into an estate plan, for example, it dives deep into the inner workings of a family unit and maybe some of the amazing things, or maybe some of the things that create potential risks or liabilities. And I think we want to embrace that and understand that when we're getting to know someone so well, so deeply, that comes along. What comes along with that is that you really can create very close, tight relationships that are very personal. And I've always embraced that very much. I share a lot along the way about myself, my journey, my family. That's really important to me. And I think that's a key to it. It's not just business. It's more that interpersonal skills that an advisor might identify with, that I think people who feel comfortable in that space should really feel comfortable leaning into it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a lot of great things there. And almost that niche of a business owner is really who you are, right? As a
Mhm.
business owner, the different milestones that you are going to have as an individual, as part of a family unit. If you're kind of working in the same demographic as you, like in terms of age, a lot of those things you're are happening at the same time. So you're experiencing together with them. I think that's, when people talk about, client segmentation and niches, I do think that you can look at as yourself as a niche, right?
Mhm.
And how do you serve clients that are going through a lot of the same things that you are at the same time. And there's a lot of learnings that I think can probably be passed on between both of you. So
Yes.
I love that. I think that's a really great way to look at how you serve your clients, how you develop out your client base, your prospects. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
So you mentioned something on our prep call that I thought was really interesting, and I really wanted to bring to light. You and your wife are raising two young boys,
Mhm.
and your wife is a diversity and inclusion consultant.
Mhm.
So how has that fact, along with being a member yourself of the LGBTQ community, influenced the type of advisor that you've become and the services that you're offering to your clients?
I think that's such a great question. And I'm going to address it head on in just a minute. But, I first want to say that our industry is a little bit slow moving when it comes to change. Women throughout my career over the last 20 years, we've continued to fight to move up. Potentially, sometimes we've all felt that we didn't have the same opportunities. And then also being a proud lesbian now, there were times where I wasn't out. So I want to acknowledge how difficult it can be for our marginalized communities out there. And that I just want to say that everyone's journey is their own, everyone's right moment is their own to kind of push the boundaries or to be more forward or what have you. And I'm certainly grateful that I've fought for that and kind of continued on my path to be a little bit more forward about potentially my experiences, but definitely very forward about who I am as a person. And so I think it's immensely important to, be for me to be forward about that, mostly because people might sit with me in a room and I might say my spouse or my family, my kids, and they have no idea that the spouse I'm talking about is female. So I have found that being forward, being clear up front and setting the expectation that that in itself, for me to be forward about the fact that I have a wife, it sets an expectation of safety and belonging for all types of individuals, right? So it sets a tone from the very beginning. So I kind of use that almost as, how we have fit calls with a prospective client. It's almost like something I say in a fit call because I can kind of gauge a reaction there and find out, did you make a face, or did you wince, or whatever it may be. So, my wife's work has impacted how I serve as an advisor, but I almost think had more impact on how I participate as a team member and even a manager. That creating cultures of belonging is incredibly important to me. And also it's constant work that's ever evolving. I mean, her ability to identify language that perhaps could have a sting on the receiving side, whether it be, unintentional violent language, or, there's just so many things out there. So she's constantly, drawing more opportunities for me to be aware of even language that I use. And I've found that is, of course, important with my clients to make sure that all clients really see an incredibly safe and nurturing place to be, but also, amongst the team members and as a manager, definitely. When you talk about DEI work, the power dynamic is a really important piece that plays into the power dynamic that can be created, especially when there's maybe a supervisor and, a reporting employee. That in itself is something that should be taken with an incredibly careful lens, because peers talking to each other, that power dynamic's not there. And so, using language that is really inclusive and really conscientious of the person on the other side, I think, particularly when there's that power dynamic, I think it's just immensely important.
Yeah, that's I'm so glad that you're being able to share that and feel comfortable sharing that. And it's very, very important. I had a guest, Peggy Haslich, on a last season. She is a member of the LGBTQ community as well. And her story was really interesting in that she got into becoming a financial advisor because any financial advisors that her and her wife had met before didn't kind of serve their needs, didn't really understand their unique dynamic situation, and or weren't making them feel that they were feeling a sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And so that actually was the catalyst for her becoming a financial advisor, because she
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find anyone that she felt comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more and more that individuals feel that they can share like their authentic self, their true self, not just with their clients and their teams, but also with the industry, I think that will start to hopefully start to make a dent in some of the demographics that currently exist, being primarily, white male dominated still.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's anything wrong with white men at all. It's more just, how do we have more of all of the other marginalized communities come and join this great profession? So I'm glad that you're out there as a role model, also as a leader and manager in your own firm. I think that sets such an important precedence, and that you can really help those that may want to feel a sense of belonging that maybe haven't in other organizations.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that. So one area many advisors struggle with is attracting the next generation of clients. But you and your firm seem to be successful with this. So you mentioned a couple things that you were doing with your current clients, and they were around the same age as you. But what are some strategies that have really worked for you to attract the next generation of client, and maybe provide an example or two?
Sure, sure. I hit on this a little bit earlier, and it's not the right fit for everyone. Some may have restraints around this according to, how their firm operates, but I really encourage people to throw the traditional minimums out the window. How many up and coming 20 somethings, early 30s are going to reach some of these minimums that have been set? And if you look at a trajectory and you see success for them, you're going to see success for yourself as an advisor. You see commitment to discipline and structure, commitment to goal achievement. Those are the things that you want to really set everyone on that trajectory. So I'm a huge fan of throwing the traditional minimums out the window, so long as you all stack hands, you're a team, almost like a sport. We're doing this in the middle of the Olympics. And so obviously that's kind of in the air everywhere, but that we can kind of stack hands and say, we're the team, we're right for each other, and we're going to do great things together. And then you go live life alongside each other. So that's number one. I really also think that really looking into the brand that you put out there is incredibly important as well, and making sure that your website, really has a cultural feel to it. It could have a DEI statement, things of that nature, that you're really forward on LinkedIn with who your brand is. For us, one of our key values is authenticity. I truly believe that you see that with anyone you meet from Perigon, from, our CEO, Arthur, all the way down. You hear him speak, or, that's where you and I met, was at a conference, and I got to speak with him. And I mean, there is no difference between us speaking on a stage versus speaking together in a room, a small group, versus speaking at dinner with a group of friends. So that authenticity that carries through, I think it's palpable, and you want to make sure that you can see some of those cultural aspects that are important to you, and try to feel them through what you're putting out there on the internet. That also may be LinkedIn. If LinkedIn is kind of the place, I think we have to keep challenging ourselves. And is TikTok the place to market? I'm not sure. I'm not great about that. What I will say, though, on the technology front is it's obviously important to have, best in class, very progressive tools that access, the access is there for clients, how they want to use it, probably an app, honoring the DIYers who want to get in there and tinker with things, because I think what we've found is our generations, really starting with Gen X and beyond, I think there's a lot of DIY there that maybe we didn't see in the generations that preceded them. So, the technology is kind of the obvious answer. I didn't have debated if I want to bring it up because everybody says it, but I don't think you can leave it behind. You have to be really intentional about your tech stack. And it may be a tech stack that is a primary tech stack, and then one that is for a young generation that's a little bit more souped up and appropriate for, I'm not going to call it a robo, but maybe it is an entirely separate tech stack, that we need to modify how we serve clients according to how that client consumes. And that should be a starting point, I think, for accessing newer generations, new groups. The last thing I'll say is, I think it's incredibly important to offer to your clients, for as they have children that are coming up, get involved with them, offer educational series for an 18-year-old. And then again, one, at 22, 23, where maybe if some have gone to traditional college and graduating, and they're being faced with these HR booklets to sign up for insurance, a 401k plan, what is disability insurance, all these things that you just opt in for, but that you don't have a lot of knowledge around. You can offer pre-recorded 15-minute series that get sent to clients, but making sure that the whole family sees that you value them, you value their success, and that we start to kind of bleed that into, the children of clients as well, I think is really important.
I love everything you just said. I think that you could turn that into a column on, how to engage with the next generation of investors. That the way that you're compensated it starts there. I remember in my former role, and I had a bunch of next gen employees, and we were talking one time about financial advice, right? So I was working at Investment News, and we reported on the business of financial advice, and many of them were saying how ironic it was that they couldn't afford, or if they couldn't have access to a financial advisor, yet they worked at this, website that did all this content for them. And I was like, God, that's terrible, really, when you think about it. So just being open to having a fee for service model or a subscription model or something, so that you, even if it's a small part of your business, that you can start to develop out what it will look like to serve that next generation, and just your branding, what your website's like. Individuals want to know, especially the next gen ones, want to know that your firm is making an impact somehow. What are you doing for the greater good? They care way more about it than maybe our generations did at the time. And I love the digital element is critical. And just the idea of trying to help your current clients. How do you engage with their children at an age that is where it's not readily looking at that you're trying to engage with them for business purposes? You're doing it as an added value to the client. I think those are fantastic ideas, and I think you should write a column on that, because it was really fantastic. So you mentioned technology. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of combining the efficiency of the myriad of wealth tech tools that are out there. It makes your head spin with the human communication element in the planning process, right? So your role, you're not only an advisor, but you're also head of planning. So you're charged with evaluating a lot of these tools to implement. You're probably going to get an influx of vendors calling you after this. So what is your overall philosophy around technology and how it intersects with the essential personal element of providing advice? And where are you seeing it being used the most effectively?
Yep. I think that fundamentally, I would start by saying that I I believe that technology is there to create efficiency. And when it comes to customized planning, personalized planning, efficiency is a bit of a threat into customized or personalized planning. So I think it's really interesting to look at the relationship between the two. And that for me is where I just find myself that I can't imagine a time where technology and tools in that arena replace a planner. I believe entirely in customized planning for pretty much every client. I struggle to believe in segmentation, to be honest, and that's a constant conversation about how to segment and all that. But I believe in scratch pad planning that exists outside of a tool. I do think, though, the advancements in the marketplace in the RIA space in particular are really astounding. It's kind of a testament to the overall investment into the RIA space that's coming from our massive institutions out there. We all of a sudden have this recognition, this power, but also, these people who didn't know who we were, certainly weren't interested in us, 10 years ago, coming and saying, I'll build that for you and I'll do it at whatever cost. So I think that I kind of go to best practices and I say, number one, I would say, take your time with the evaluation. Technology moves at a pace that is incredibly fast paced. So think of their industry, what it feels like to sit at their desk. Think of our industry, what it feels to sit at our desk. And aside from the investment markets, which is probably going to feel more technology like, our culture doesn't work at that pace. So I think making sure to allow yourself to do things your way, not work at their pace, work at your own pace, and find the right team internally to evaluate what you're looking at. Right now, I built a team around one specific charge platform that we're trying to rethink, get off the ground, and it is a technology backing platform. And I put a couple of people who are really anti on that team. Particularly, I want representation, right? So be really intentional about the team. And typically, when you're looking at technologies, you need some serious doers. So it's a great time to leverage your next generation of potential advisors, some of your operational staff on these kinds of teams as well. I've had a lot of success with that. The second thing I would say is it's ongoing. And right now at the pace of development, you can't sit back. You can't create something and say, I've got it, and then sit back for a couple of years. Maybe you can sit back for 12 months because you don't want to constantly be tinkering with it, but it's very fast paced, and you could be evaluating and create this team to evaluate technology, and 6 months later, there's two new things to look at in that same space that might, should have been considered. So you just have to be mindful of the inflow that we have right now. I don't think that will always be the case, but right now we have a really unique environment for technological development in our industry. And just number three, I would say, remind yourself all the time that not everything can be done with tech. So, there's amazing things for efficiency, note taking, some of those things that are really low hanging fruit that are administrative, that can be developed into your service model. And I personally think it's just as beneficial to evaluate those, get those in your practice, create efficiencies within your practice, but allow the advice world to be very personal, to be voice to voice, to be face to face, and not try to push technology into your interactions with your clients all the time. So I just think being mindful and intentional about using technology to create efficiencies versus giving customized advice, and again, evaluating with the right team of people to help make big moves within your firm.
Yeah, that's a great advice. And I think that is important to make sure that you have those that maybe aren't as engaged as they should be, to be part of the team that selects what technologies you decide to onboard, how it fits in with the rest of the workflow. I think that's a really key point that many firms miss. And then your point about, it's really a blend between technology and the human element, right? And even I've had many technology leaders, those that are creating these solutions for RIAs and other advisors on, and they even, kind of say it's not the be all and end all. Like you got to have that personal element, that human element too. So it's never going to replace the advisor. I think we know that. It's more about how you use this technology to be more efficient, which is your point. So great points again. And I can't believe it, but we're at the end of our podcast. We've got my final question. I always start with the first question the same and the last question the same. This time flew by. So with the title and the theme of the podcast, Focused on the Future, Keys to Building a Profitable, Sustainable, and Impactful Business in mind, what is your last line? What key takeaway do you want to leave our audience with?
I think it's to work with people you like, teammates, clients. If you feel really good about where you work and who you work with, magic happens. And then I think along with that magic, that we always want to be focused on advocacy, whether you're advocating for yourself, your team members, definitely your clients. A lot of what a CFP should do is advocate for your clients and how they navigate their financial world, curate it with them. And so that's what I really believe in personally, is that we're here to be advocates. And I think everyone should be always thinking about advocacy as a core to their business.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. It really can make or break how you feel about getting up in the morning and going into work, right? It really is the thing that is, I think, overlooked many times. We talk about so many other topics, but if you don't like or don't agree with or don't feel comfortable with the people that you work with, it can affect everything else that goes into your day. So thank you again. I think that was great advice. Thanks for being my guest today and for sharing what is working for you and your firm as you look towards the future. You provided really some fantastic advice and guidance on growth and next-gen clients, making an impact, and of course, being and feeling included and belonging. I really appreciate your comments. I'm Suzanne Siracuse. Thanks for listening, and I hope this episode leaves you feeling even more excited to be focused on the future.